Hey, what's up? It's your host, Tori, and who is ready to be petty? Welcome back to another episode of RTBP. I'm so glad you're here. I'm back with a bonus episode of the pod. This is a Patreon episode that I'm releasing to the public. I interview a literary critic, writer, and host of the Missing Pages podcast, Bethanne Patrick, and we are talking all about the celebrity memoir Craze. We've seen such an uptick, I feel like, in celebrity memoirs, celebrities using memoirs as a PR tool, as well as just coverage, like media coverage of these books. We specifically talk about Britney Spears' memoir and Prince Harry's memoir. I was going to say Harry Styles for a sec. No, definitely Prince Harry. So if you enjoy these more deep divey episodes, ones that are focused around one topic versus just trending pop culture stories, you may like my Patreon, which includes bi-weekly episodes with some of your fave guests, as well as a Discord community. And I feel like some people don't understand maybe what Patreon and Discord are, so I'll explain that for you. Patreon is a paid for service where you are paying a creator to make more or additional content. So I publish bi-weekly episodes, and through Patreon, you can listen to those in the Patreon app, or you can directly put them into your Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So it is like a seamless listening experience. And then Discord is kind of like a Slack chat where we have a bunch of different channels where we can talk about different things like Vanderpump Rules, Taylor Swift, our pets, our Pettyweight Champs of the Week. We can gripe about our This Week in Petties, and it's super, super fun to meet other people who like the same kind of topics that you do. If you like today's episode and want to join Patreon, you can do so by going to patreon.com/RTBP podcast. Okay, folks, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Here's my conversation with Bethanne Patrick. I'm back with a very special guest, Bethanne Patrick, the host of the chart-topping and Signal Award-winning podcast, Missing Pages. Bethanne, how are you?
I am really great, Tori, and I'm so glad to be here with you today. I think Ready to be Petty is so much fun. I may be, the oldest guest you've had on, but that is okay because my petty quotient, is just, it is as high as someone a third my age, half my age. So I am an author and a critic, and I've spent a lot of time around the book publishing world.
Yes.
So Missing Pages is definitely right in my wheelhouse, or could that be publishing house? Well, it might be time to start my own publishing house.
Yes.
So Missing Pages, we just finished, we didn't finish, but we're season 2 is running right now. And it investigates everything from people who scam the literati to how big publishing operates. And I am not making an analogy. By the way, we're going to be talking about celebrity memoirs, and I've written a memoir, but I am not and never will be a celebrity. So I just want to make that clear. I'm going to be talking about those big names that we love on Ready to Be.
I will say the literary world and like the publishing world, it does have, I feel like, as much gossip and lore as Hollywood would.
Oh, yes, it does. It doesn't get as much ink, if you will, as Hollywood does, but that's okay because we produce plenty of our own ink about it. And we also, of course, produce the ink. Am I really milking that for all of these celebrity memoirs that we're going to be talking about today. And it's funny because Tori, when I got this request and saw the questions, I thought, oh, do I read these celebrity memoirs? Oh, guess what? Yes, I do.
That is so funny. Yeah. And celebrity memoirs, like, it's not my book of like genre of choice for sure. But I really, honestly, I have to give it up to Celebrity Memoir Book Club, Claire and Ashley, for feeding the interest, I feel, mine in particular. But there are some like important memoirs to read, I think, especially in the last couple of years. So yeah, that's what we're gonna kind of talk about today.
Yep.
So I guess my first question to you is, yeah, what's your fave celebrity memoir, and do you read the genre, and why is it important?
It's really interesting because, as I said, I didn't think I read celebrity memoirs, but I do. And part of that came from, when I got started in publishing, and I was doing author profiles first for a print magazine. Then I was doing author interviews for AOL long time ago.
Nice.
And yeah, right. And then I started doing author interviews live as well. For a few years, I worked with a PBS affiliate here in DC, WETA, and did broadcast interviews with authors. And a lot of them were celebrities. So for instance, at AOL, I interviewed Andy Summer of the Beatles. Listen to me,
Yeah.
the Police, the
Yeah,
Police.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not that old, okay. I interviewed Peter Falk. I interviewed Martha Stewart. Then, live, I interviewed everyone from astronaut Buzz Aldrin to cooking guru Lydia Bastianich, even Paul Yarrow of Peter, Paul, and Mary,
Yes,
or was it
yes,
Peter? They get
yes,
them mixed up. I
yes,
mean,
yes.
so I learned that there can be really fantastic celebrity memoirs. Some of them, it's called a memoir, but it's really, I don't know, a how-to guide, or
Exactly.
it's all marketing. But for instance, Peter Falk, who was Columbo long ago. And we're not forgetting Columbo because now we have Natasha Lyonne's amazing Poker Face, which is based on Columbo. So
Yes.
Peter Falk's memoir was so sweet and so much from the heart, for example. Then, I might see something that was really just a marketing ploy, someone who was a
Yes.
model who just wanted to talk about, uh, uh, silly stuff. But I do read tons and tons of memoirs from celebrity food people and music people. And so some of the ones that I know we're going to talk about, but I realized recently I've read Dave Grohl's The Storyteller, which
Oh,
is
yeah. Yes, yeah.
awesome, and
Yes.
Michelle Zauner's Crying in H Mart. So Zauner is, Japanese breakfast. She's the lead.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this book isn't about music at all. It's about how she came to grieve and truly appreciate her mother through cooking the Korean dishes that her mother had made for her, while she was growing
Wow.
up. It was
Yeah.
very, very good. And so, this is one more thing I'll say. I know I'm running off at the mouth
No, I
here.
love this. I love this. It's interesting.
Is
And it says a lot about you too. So I love this. This is
Oh,
great.
good. Oh, good. So what I was going to say about that is Zahner's book and Grohl's book too. These are, I wouldn't say either one of them would describe themselves as literary or say I'm a literary writer, but their books are really fantastic. Then I thought, oh gosh, I love things like Keith Richards' life. That taught me so much about him, about roots blues music, and
Mm-hmm.
also made me see that we all of us think, when we think of Keith Richards, oh, that wild, crazy Rolling Stone guy. He has so much, he reads constantly. He is a real autodidact in terms of literature and philosophy, but he also listens constantly. And it was just amazing. I could keep going on, but there are two more I want to
Yeah,
mention.
yeah, yeah, please.
One is The Chiffon Trenches by Andre Leon Talley. And
Yes.
yes, the
Yes.
creative director at Vogue for so long.
Profound. Yeah.
I, Totally profound. I had read his previous book. Can't remember the title. Sorry about
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
this book is so profound because you get all of these stories about Anna Wintour and about the fashion
Mm-hmm.
world and the Met Galas. But then in the middle of it is this beautiful, poignant, tragic section about why he's never really had a truly whole, loving, intimate relationship.
Yeah.
And it just knocked me over. I remember when it came out, the novelist Brandon Taylor and I were both obsessed with it, and we were going back and forth on what used to be Twitter about it. And I thought, yes, this book can hit a nerve
Yeah.
for a middle-aged white woman and
Yeah.
also a very young queer black writer. It's
Yeah.
meaningful. And the
Yes.
special mention I want to make, this is so funny. So
Yeah.
this is the first time I have hundreds of books signed to me by authors I've met over the years, but the very first one I ever got when I was in high school was a signed copy of Bubbles by Beverly Sills. And I was taking voice lessons at the time, and she was a real, a figure, a role model for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And to have that, I think I finally let it go, but I had that little paperback signed for so long and really cherished it. And I thought that's something I want to say about celebrity memoirs too, is we can be petty about them and we can be very superficial about them, but some of them, when someone
Yes.
gets to meet that person, that
Yeah.
celebrity, and have a moment, it is truly meaningful for years.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're totally right. And I think that's why also the genre is so interesting, because you have these really impactful books that mean a lot to people. And when people are at, yeah, public figureheads at the top of their game, like whatever their field is, like it is interesting to learn about it. Or yeah, we get more context to the music industry or
Right.
whatnot that we need. Or it can be this cash grab thing, which I didn't really, I think, understand that like celebrities would get paid. Like this could be a quote unquote like quick cash grab, just because you think, when I think about writing, I think about, months and years and research and just the effort, the blood, sweat, and tears that go into writing a book. And then just to think that celebrities can sometimes, I feel like, swoop in and have this book, yeah, that it might be like, yeah, a how-to guide, or like even almost like a picture book. And like it just, the range is so vast. And yeah, so it's a fascinating kind of genre.
Well, what I was going to say, this is interesting because I think we'll be talking more about cash grabs as we go along.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I want to say is I just learned, and maybe it's a couple of years old, maybe I didn't realize it. So there is an actor, a British actor named Prunella Scales. And
Mm-hmm.
this is very way back, but um, she was in a show with John Cleese called Faulty Towers. Do you know Faulty Towers?
No, but I know John
Okay.
Cleese.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah, of course.
this is one of his most famous things. It was didn't run for very long. And I actually think that it was very limited, but it is long running for Monty Python fans and comedy fans. Okay. So it was back in the 70s. So Prunella Scales was Basil Fawlty's wife. And Sybil Fawlty, that was her name. And she was really dry and had this delivery that went like this, Tori. Sybil always had a cigarette and she would be like, Basil, you haven't done this. So, oh no, oh no. It was very funny. And they were supposed to be based in Torquay on the coast. And so, anyway, she was well known for that. She did other things in her career. Her husband was a really famous stage actor in England
Mm-hmm.
for decades, lots and lots of dramas and Shakespeare and all that sort of thing. Um, I believe his name is Tim Winfield. I might not have that right. So check it. But they've been married for 60 years. And about maybe 10, 15 years ago, she developed dementia. Okay.
Mm.
And what I saw was an interview with them. And again, I don't know how recent this memoir is, but he decided to write a memoir about their long marriage and about her dementia. And she is still at 80 something in this video, she was still able to talk and participate in the interview. She seemed slow, but
Yeah.
very, and I thought, oh,
Yeah.
this is a good reason to do that cash grab.
Yes, yes.
So
Because
that's why I wanted to tell that whole story, Tori.
yes, no, you're totally right. And I always think one of the most, like, I am the most jealous of the Kardashians for basically one specific reason, and it's their like archives. They are able to just archive everything, whether it's like all of their outfits or belongings or gifts or videos, like, and I feel like the thing that is so interesting is that you have now this thing that you can pass on and that lives on after you're gone. And regardless if it was for money or not. And like, also, you deserve the money. You're sharing
You
information.
deserve the money.
You're sharing information, and like oftentimes personal information about yourself. But yeah, I think sometimes people choose to write a book for different reasons.
Yes.
But it is really interesting because I feel like we're coming into this new, like, we are definitely in a absolute celebrity memoir like moment.
Yes.
But I'm finding that a lot of people, it seems like they're choosing it to like rehab their image, or but that was one of my questions for you, is like, why would you choose this route over anything else? Because I'm like, you could just go on like 60 Minutes or like a talk show, or like write an article, like have an article published about you in a magazine. Like there's so, or more like direct to consumer, like social media, like you could just like on your Instagram or your TikTok or whatever. So I'm just like, why would someone choose this route when it seems like it does take time, regardless of how quick they can produce it, and not everyone's going to read it. And it's a lot more to read an article in a journal than, or a magazine
Right.
than to purchase like a book and stuff like that. Yeah, regardless if it's Kindle or whatever.
It's interesting because I was talking about those inscribed and signed memoirs that I have earlier. And so I think even though we're in the era of audiobooks and ebooks, people still, and it will probably change in the next 10 to 20 years significantly. People still think of hardbacks on a shelf, right? As being something permanent, instead of what you were saying about the Kardashians, the Kardashians, listen to me, and their archives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because digital archives still seem somehow not as permanent to us. And I've done some work. I've been on a library board and and some other work, and it's really interesting. Even the more and more we get that is digital, electronic, archivable in those ways, there are still all of these books that libraries know they can't get rid of completely, because those are the things that last, right? Who is going to watch a VHS tape? No one has a VCR at home anymore. So even if you archived that show on tape, it's worth nothing to you. People know that books are a tool you can always access. And books are not just tools that are always accessible and that last, but they are also instant credibility. They're a calling card. And so, you do. I know you mentioned people have a lot of control over the content in a book, unlike an interview or maybe a profile in a magazine. And sometimes they write them themselves. Sometimes they acknowledge their ghostwriters, which is something we can also talk about, and something we are covering this season on Missing Pages. But I think that it is a lot about permanence and credibility. And that's why they want to write these things, because certainly if it was all about creative control, then they would write the books themselves. It's more about being understood by a collaborator or a ghostwriter. So it's not necessarily, oh, I need to make this all mine. Michelle Zauner, for example, did write Crying in H Mart. That is not something produced by a collaborator or a ghostwriter. But it really it depends. There is a famous restaurateur in New York, Gabrielle Hamilton, who got an MFA and also wrote her own memoir and other pieces. That is Blood, Bones, and Butter. It's a fantastic.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful book. So anyway, I think, as you said, in some cases, it's to change the narrative. And so I know we have to talk about Spare, which I read cover to cover. And I have lots of thoughts. So
yeah. Okay, I love that. But you're right. There is something that is prestigious, obviously, about a book versus a interview or article, or even just like trying to do it in the media, I guess, through like social media. There is something prestigious. The creative control piece is interesting also because so they get, like, I guess they have more say in what gets included in the book than, say, an interview that runs for an hour but only 20 minutes airs. There is still a piece that it's like I guess it's more, but it's still not, I think, maybe like 100%. Because when you are working with a collaborator, you are giving up some of that driving seat. Like, you're in the driver's seat, like, seat, sort of there, but there's a passenger like right there that's kind of also steering the car. So that's really interesting.
That's the perfect analogy for Spare. So
Prince Harry.
So Prince Harry worked with a really well-known and highly regarded writer and ghostwriter named J.R. Moehringer. And J.R. Moehringer wrote, it's got to be nearly 20 years ago now, a beautiful memoir called The Tender Bar. It was made into a movie just in the last couple of years. I think Ben Affleck was in it.
Okay.
It was about how he basically, was raised by the bartenders and men in this bar that his father, I can't remember if his father owned it or just frequented it, but it was very, very, very good. And Moehringer has, over the years, he also was the ghostwriter for Agassi, for Andre Agassi's memoir, which was also very highly regarded.
Yeah.
It was something that was also shocking to people because it was where Andre Agassi, admitted, I don't really love tennis. I've been doing all of this for someone else. And so Moehringer, I'm just going to say before we get into Spare, is known for his ability as a journalist and reporter and stylist, for being able to bring out a lot of honesty and authenticity from his subjects, but also to take their stories and craft them beautifully. I mean, you read Spare, Tori?
Yeah, I did. And a lot of my patrons did too. Like, it was a moment for sure, which I do think he brought out a lot of honesty and authenticity for sure in Harry. Some I didn't need.
Well, here's what I believe, and I think I've said this before. So I read the whole thing. I thought it was really, really well written. Thank you, J.R. Moehringer. I also found the parts. So I am a military spouse. My husband, well, he's retired now, but my husband was active duty for 20 years. And I found the sections about Harry's military service, especially about his deployments, to be incredible, so good. He really is a soldier. That is who Harry Windsor is. He is someone, I believe, who, I'm not trying to be militaristic, and I'm, certainly not, hardline conservative in any way, but there are people who are suited to different kinds of professions and lives
Yeah.
and careers.
Yeah.
And the way he talked about the men in his units, the
Mm-hmm.
way he talked about his experiences, what he got out of them, that's what makes me say he is a soldier. Not
Yeah. Yeah.
because I'm saying, oh my gosh, thank God for this or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I wondered, could that have been a book? Could it have
Yeah.
been a book instead of being called Spare? Could it have been Soldier or
Yeah.
something like that?
That's
There
so
were,
interesting.
thank
I
you,
I
because
agree though. I
yeah,
totally agree. Like he seems most at in alignment with himself when he was in the military,
yes,
100%. But the interesting part that I think that you're saying is that I don't think that would sell. Like I think people only care about the context of the royal family, which I think he understands to a point, for sure. But I think when he goes off that like beaten path or whatever, like I just people lose interest, which
that's right.
is
That's
sad. And
right.
I think that that was like, but that is like case in point about his book is that he's always at the mercy of having to talk about his family or be in his family or do things for his family, and people don't care about his time, like his time in the
Harry
military. Yeah.
Harry is the redheaded stepchild our culture deserves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I really, of course, I have been glued to the crown to this last
Mm-hmm.
season. I
Of
am,
course.
I am
Same.
unashamed, not sorry, not sorry. And it has been really interesting to compare and contrast. What is the actor playing Harry? Lucas something.
Yeah, he's great, I
He's
think.
really
But
great.
I enjoyed him a lot. A lot of I think he isn't getting. I think he's getting mixed reviews. But
He is. And I don't
yeah.
think he should, because he said something in an interview that I read, and I'm not going to capture it precisely. Sorry, Lucas. But he said, you're not trying to, do an impersonation. You are trying to capture something. You're trying to capture a character, a quality. And I think many of the actors on The Crown do that really well. I'll leave the ones, since we're talking about memoirs and not TV, I'll leave the ones who don't.
No, I love that. But I go back and forth about my feelings for Harry because there is a part of me like as a human that
Mm-hmm.
I feel so bad for him. And I think he has lived like a tough life in some aspects. But then also it's like you're a part of a British aristocracy.
You
Like
are,
you don't need our sympathy. But
because in the TV series, at one point, Harry says to William, you're such a fucking corporate, shill or whatever. And, it's true. I mean, if you go in, you go all in, and
yeah.
it is a job. It is not,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it is not a life of luxury in some ways. It is a job.
Absolutely. So, do you think the interest from his book in particular that we saw this like insane response, do you think it was because we don't get firsthand like documentations of the royal family in this way?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I have probably last year, I was really happy to do a live interview with Andrew Morton when he wrote The Queen, in front of a
Wow.
nice big audience of every
Amazing.
every woman in the room was wearing pearls. Some of them were wearing tiaras as well. They were so
I
excited.
love that. I love
And
that.
Andrew Morton, of course, has caused scandal with the books he's written. He has also made a lot of people happy with the Queen. And so here is a book that is very accurate. Okay. Some of his stories I've heard before. Some of the stories that he tells in the book, he told during the interview again. But I think people are very careful when they write about the royal family, even when they have bombshells to drop, like Morton did with Princess Diana. And so it's not unfiltered because there's a ghostwriter, okay? Spare is not unfiltered, but it is the closest you're going to get to direct, authentic thoughts and stories from a member or a former member of the royal family. You're not going to get, I mean, there aren't any secret Prince Philip memoirs coming out as far as I know. That would that would cause a splash. I mean, it would probably be very foul-mouthed too. But this is something I think that makes people feel they understand better and they want to. I mean, this is just to go back to The Crown for a moment.
Yeah.
One of the things in this last series, in this last season, that they go over again and again is the need for people to feel a sense of mystery about the royal family, about the monarchy. And as Americans, North Americans, we don't have necessarily the same feeling. I mean, even I think the most devout Canadian follower of the Commonwealth has a sense, we have a sense of distance. We're on a different continent, and so we don't have that need for the mystery. We want reality. We want the Kardashians, HRH Kardashians.
Yeah, no, that is such a good point. We just view them as more celebrities than monarchs, and so we want the gossip, we want the truth, we want the insider details. We don't need them as you're right, like figureheads and
it's Vanderpump Buckingham Palace.
Yes. Oh gosh. And we are on Patreon, we are gonna book club Omid Scobie's Endgame in January. So very excited for that.
I am diving into that now that I have that.
Nice.
I cannot resist. And something I'm trying to remember where I put this in my notes. So I just want to say really quickly, wherever I put this, come on, Bethanne. Here's the thing about, whatever you think about Harry and Meghan, and whatever you think about Harry's memoir, they have shown the world a lot about choosing mental wellness.
Yes.
Okay. I know right now they're facing so much gossip and criticism about Archewell's budget and all of that. But I think there is something to be said for, reality TV, Buckingham Palace. I think there is something, this is one of those shifts that, the Queen made a shift after Diana's death. And maybe this is a time when King Charles and Queen Camilla are going to have to think about a big shift as well.
Totally.
Because, their children and their grandchildren are members of very different generations, and if they want to remain relevant, I said to someone yesterday, to a British friend in my generation, that so many people we knew, our parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, had respect for the Queen no matter what, because the royal family stayed in London during the Blitz, which of course I am way too young to have experienced, but my grandparents, that was a big thing for Americans to see, that people who could easily have, scarpered off to an island or anywhere, said, no, we're making the decision to stay here with our people. That's over now. Charles and Camilla didn't do anything. They weren't born, during World War II. So personally, I think that Charles has done some good things and been interested in some good things. That doesn't mean he always does the right thing.
Totally. 100%. Yeah. Like, I like his sustainability initiatives, that he goes vegan,
right.
part-time and stuff like that.
Part-time. They Where is his memoir? Part-time vegan.
Part-time vegan. No, I love that. But you're totally right. And I think it's hard to see how this is going to play out because we are living it. But I think when people look back at this time, we'll see more of kind of, what you're describing. Let's talk about Britney because, she is our queen. We book clubbed The Woman in Me this past month. And like that was, again, a memoir that we had waited for years on because she also, like, doesn't do traditional media and stuff like that, or couldn't do traditional media.
Couldn't. And this is so important because as I know, she had 3 different ghostwriters.
Yes.
And that is not, it's okay. I know lots of celebrities who have, had 2 maybe, or changed ghostwriters because, it really depends so much about chemistry, right? That relationship. But having 3 and lending them journals as well as giving interviews, that is a lot of material. But I do think that Britney, The Woman in Britney, has a lot of facets. And that's so I actually listened to the audiobook.
Yeah.
I don't, it's funny because I don't listen to tons of audiobooks.
Neither do I.
So this one, though, I thought I want to hear it spoken because here's what I saw that was so interesting is so many younger women I know were galvanized by the freeing of Britney from custody. And all of them are reading or listening to The Woman in Me. And I'm coming out of third wave feminism, and it's funny that I don't even like Britney's music, but she has come to stand for something, for independence for women and femmes. And I guess what I want to say there, just like I was saying about Meghan and Harry, figures who radicalize us to make change aren't always who we expect them to be.
I know.
And so I liked Michelle Williams as narrator. I thought that worked. There's no big shocking news except for the sad news about the abortion, which is just so hard. And what really struck me in the book was how frightening that conservatorship was. No wonder she thought her family was trying to kill her. No wonder, and so it really is about it's a difficult situation with mental illness and mental health care in most countries, and definitely in the United States, probably in Canada as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, for someone to be put into that kind of situation and not to have any control over her body, not just, where she could go and when, but, the blood work 3 times a day.
The blood work, the forced IUD.
Yes.
Yeah, all of those things, 100%. It's like those were when she gave her, when like the audio was leaked, I guess, from court when she was speaking about these pieces. Like those are the things that like moved me so much about, how like, her bodily autonomy was taken away. And it is interesting about how you're right that like sometimes these things like radicalize us, but it's the person that you're least expecting it to be. Like I do think that was Britney for a lot of people, and that's just so powerful. But you mentioned the ghostwriters. That is so interesting to me too, because Sam Lansky, who was I think the 3rd ghostwriter, wrote the Taylor Swift Time article. Which like has been in the news,
huge in the news. And a friend who is in my generation and I were talking about this when it came out, and we were so mad that so many men were saying, Taylor Swift, that's not a person of the year, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what, you will get Taylor Swift for president, and I will laugh so hard because
Yeah.
she is someone who is showing what how a young woman shows real power in our
Mm-hmm.
society.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't always by being demure.
Yeah, yeah,
The women
yeah,
who are a little bit older than I am were the floppy bow with the suit generation.
yeah.
And I remember thinking, while I was a teenager, like, who wants to do that? Who wants to go to an office and look like a man? And so I kind of think that Britney, with this memoir, is showing us the way to Taylor Swift, showing us the way to a woman who says, look, I've got an incredible amount of talent, but also I'm pretty business savvy. Taylor Swift is never going to end up in a conservatorship. Okay. That is not a diss on Britney at all. That is because Taylor Swift has had a different set of circumstances, different upbringing, all of
Mm-hmm.
these things in context. But it is, to me, immensely satisfactory. It gives me such satisfaction to see Taylor making her own decisions, and for the Time editors to see that those decisions have given her, that person of the year status, that influence. And it's not Insta influence. I mean, yes, it comes sometimes on Instagram, but that
Yeah,
is not what Taylor Swift is going for. She's playing a very long game.
totally.
Totally. And
Totally.
I
Yeah.
am just like, oh, what is going to happen? Like, I'm just going to go back to the royals for a second. When I watched the coronation, and I didn't watch the entire thing, I had thought that that was really going to be something new and different. And Charles and Camilla chose a lot of tradition. And I thought, oh, I guess that's what they needed. I guess that's what they craved after all of those years. But I would like to see a Taylor Swift kind of queen
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
king,
Yeah, yeah.
and see someone who does not need any but the simplest of trappings to say, here I am, I have brought my A game, and this is what we need right now to
Yeah.
show um, all of the female identified people in the world that they matter. That's
Yeah.
what the Time designation meant to me.
Yeah, yes, because again, it has met controversy. And like, also, it's like when you're picking one person, of course, it's gonna, like, I don't think you can choose one person. Like, it doesn't make sense. We live in, like, yeah, a world that's very multifaceted and stuff like that, and covers so many different types of people and different identities and yeah, groups of people. But I totally agree with you, is her effect on people and young women in particular, for sure, girls, is profound. And I really do think that she will influence and shift this generation. Like you're saying, like, it didn't shift with Camilla and Charles, but it is shifting with maybe Kate and Will, and definitely with Harry and Meghan. And I think that's what Taylor Swift is, like, is yeah, showing this new way of, working in this industry, for sure. So
Game
yeah, that
changer. And
game
it didn't
changer.
change with, if we want to make, go into music, it didn't change the same way with Madonna or even Cher before Madonna. Not the same way it's changed. And I don't want to diminish either one's contributions. They lived in through a time when there was so much more criticism of, I look at Taylor, and this is, I mean, again, we're off the memoir subject, but I know, the way once you were supposed to be, with like no contact between knees, thighs, ankles, kind of thing. Like, she's just a strong, healthy person. And
Totally.
that is that's pretty amazing. So strong, healthy, successful, smart, talented. There we go. And you
Yeah.
asked whose memoir I am
Yeah,
excited
yeah,
for.
yeah.
So sorry to take the question away from
No,
you,
yeah.
Tori,
No,
but
go
there you
ahead.
go. Taylor
Yeah.
Swift.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect.
I,
100%. Yeah.
I have some others though too, so we
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah. I'm excited if a memoir ever comes just because there are a lot of I still think that there's a lot of gaps or like in her like that I want to know about.
oh
So,
yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, who else are you excited for?
Well, now, for the ones that are coming out in 2024, I'm just going to mention a couple. There's one in January that is not celebrity, but I think it might be interesting to some of the Ready to Be Petty crowd. It is called More by Molly Roden Winter. And she is not a celeb, but maybe she will be. She's a Brooklyn writer who she and her husband decided they wanted to have an open marriage, and
Interesting.
so they did, but then their adolescent kids found out about it. And that was really shocking to them. And they wondered, what do we do next? So I'm not going to give any spoilers, but that is one in January, I think everyone should be looking out for, because we are in an age where we're not just looking at, I'm sorry, I keep fiddling with my hair because it's falling in my eyes. We're not just looking at, gender fluidity. We're
Mm,
also looking at relationship fluidity. And
totally.
so I think this is a big one. So speaking of gender fluidity, the one I'm really excited for, and I can't remember, I think it comes out in the spring, is RuPaul, The House of Hidden Meanings. That is going to be so good. And they're also, here's another royal connection, couldn't help it, Tori.
I
Uh,
love it. We love
Charles
it.
Spencer, Diana's brother, but it's
Yes.
not about his sister. It's called A Very Private School. It's about boarding school in England. And
Interesting.
so I think that's going to be one that a lot of people are reading. But when it comes to, I said I'd love to see a memoir from Taylor Swift. I have a bunch of people I want to write memoirs. First among them is your Justin Trudeau. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I would love to read his memoir. And
Yeah.
then Kate McKinnon,
Mm-hmm.
Katie Bryant, or maybe they can just write one together. That's what I'm putting that out into the universe. Kate, Katie, please, I'll help you, if they need my help. But I mean, that would be amazing.
Yes, yes.
It would be really great. So,
Oh, you picked such great candidates because you're right. I would love the behind the scenes of SNL, but from like a woman or like
yes. And a queer woman and a woman with different
yeah,
size.
100%. Totally, totally. Or like any of honestly any of the like people that have minoritized identities at SNL. Because it's such a bros club, like
Yep.
that would be so interesting to me. And also just in the comedy scene for sure
Yes.
too. And then
Yes.
yeah, Justin, I am interested to hear from, but maybe in
Yes.
a few years. Like
Maybe in a few
I get
years.
enough Justin content currently. But
Now, and then another one, because I've mentioned, I'll give one last one. I've mentioned so many
yeah.
musicians. There, stay, hair, stay. Is Chrissy Hind of the Pretenders.
Oh
And
yeah.
the reason I think that would be really fascinating is, like Taylor Swift, Chrissy Hind has really done things on her own terms.
Mm.
However, Chrissy Hind is in her 70s now. And she came up in a time where to be a woman rocker was just, people didn't know what to do with her. She had so many fits and starts with different band members, different relationships. I think she would have so many stories to tell. And I think she would also have so many things to say about what it means to break through the boys club, like the bros club, like you were referring to SNL. She was married, she has a child,
Mhm.
she
Mhm.
has done all of these things, and she's never compromised her style, her artistry, what she wants to do. I think that's been really tough for her. I'd love to, hear
dive into that.
Yeah, totally dive into that.
Yeah, that's great. I love those examples. That's so great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for chatting with me today. This was really insightful, and I love I just feel like you brought a lot of different perspective on celebrity memoirs than like what I have currently been like listening and reading and like learning about. So I really appreciated that. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you and anything else that you want to plug?
Well, first of all, thank you, Tori. This has been such a fun conversation. Missing Pages is a podcast produced by The Podglomerate. I love them. And you can find us on Twitter, or I'll have to call it X.
X, yeah.
Yeah, at Miss Pages Pod. You can find us on Instagram at Missing Pages Pod. You can find us on TikTok, I believe. I don't know what our TikTok handle is. Shame on me.
I'll include it in the show notes.
Thank you. Worries. And you can find Missing Pages everywhere you get your podcasts. And I'll give a very small plug for my memoir, Life B, which is about overcoming double depression. And it is out from Counterpoint Press. It is also available on Audible, and I narrated it. So I just wanted to give a little shout for that.
Wait.
Oh, well,
Seriously.
Please.
Thank you. That's so interesting. Okay. Amazing.
And so
thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome. You are very welcome. Thank you, Tori. And I just want to say we're in season 2 of Missing Pages right now. So keep listening.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. And there you have it. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you to Beth and Patrick for joining me on today's episode. A little teaser, but Bethanne is actually going to be on my other podcast, Ready to Be Romance, talking about book talk and the rise of Colleen Hoover. So if you enjoyed her content, you can follow me there too at Ready to Be Romanced. If you're looking for more pop culture things, as I said at the top of the show, you can join Patreon for an extra 2 episodes a month, patreon.com/RTBP podcast. Okay, friends, I hope you are safe and healthy out there. As always, I'm your host, Tori, and I am ready to be petty. See you soon. Bye.